I still remember that night as if it was yesterday. It was winter in the countryside just outside of London, cold, wet, and unbearably quiet. The sort of night where even the street lamps seemed half asleep, their yellow light struggling against the heavy rain that lashed against the windows of my car. Driving for Uber usually meant long, uneventful hours. People going home from pubs, tired travelers from train stations, couples arguing in the back seat. Nothing new, nothing that ever really unsettled me. But that night was different. It was close to 1:15 a.m. when my phone buzzed with a ride request. The pickup was from a tiny village called Ashford Hollow, a place I'd rarely driven through. The map showed it was about 20 minutes away, deep into the countryside where the roads narrowed into winding lanes lined with bare, skeletal trees. I hesitated for a moment. Rides that far out never felt right, but the roads were quiet, and the money was decent. I accepted. As I drove further from the city lights, the rain grew heavier. The wipers worked furiously, but the water smeared across the glass like dark shadows crawling over my vision. The GPS kept directing me deeper into lonely stretches of countryside. Old farmhouses appeared in the distance, dark silhouettes against the night sky, most of them abandoned-looking, their windows like black, hollow eyes. When I finally reached the pin location, my headlights cut through the rain and revealed a small, broken bus stop shelter by the side of the road. The glass panes were cracked, graffiti scrawled across them. And there, sitting on the splintered wooden bench, was my passenger. A man. He looked to be in his late 40s, dressed in a long dark coat and an old-fashioned flat cap, the kind my grandfather used to wear. He wasn't holding a phone, at least not that I could see, which immediately struck me as odd. How had he booked an Uber if he didn't even have a phone in his hand? I slowed the car and pulled up beside him. He rose slowly, as if every movement was heavy, deliberate. The way he stood in the rain without flinching gave me a strange feeling in my chest. He stepped forward and opened the back door, sliding into the seat without a word. "Good evening," I said, trying to sound casual. He didn't reply at first. Just sat there, his face mostly hidden beneath the brim of his cap, raindrops clinging to his coat. Finally, in a low, gravelly voice, he spoke. "Take me to Holloway Lane." I glanced at my phone. No drop-off had been entered, which again was unusual. Rides almost always came with both pickup and destination preset. Still, I typed in Holloway Lane. Several results appeared, scattered across different parts of the countryside. "Which one?" I asked, turning slightly to face him. "The one near the old church," he said. Something about the way he said it made the hairs rise on the back of my neck. I nodded, selected the location, and pulled back onto the narrow road. The rain hammered harder now, and the trees bent under the wind, their twisted branches scraping the night like claws. The further we drove, the darker it got. Even the weak glow of the occasional farmhouse window had vanished, leaving only the rhythmic thrum of rain and the faint reflection of my headlights on the wet road. For a long stretch, he said nothing. The silence pressed heavily inside the car, broken only by the creak of leather as he shifted occasionally in the back seat. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, trying to catch a clearer glimpse of his face, but the shadows always seemed to swallow it. All I ever saw were pale lips, slightly curved down, and the wet sheen of his coat. To break the silence, I asked, "So, were you waiting there long?" He tilted his head slightly, but didn't meet my eyes in the mirror. "Long enough." The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't impatient. It was hollow. I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, rough night to be out. I wouldn't want to be standing in the rain at this hour." He finally looked up at the mirror. And in that split second, I wished he hadn't. His eyes were pale, so pale they almost looked gray. And his skin seemed wrong. Like it was stretched too thin across his bones, drained of all warmth. He held my gaze for a moment longer than felt comfortable, then slowly looked back down, disappearing into shadow again. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. The road twisted and turned, slick with water, the hedgerows pressing in closer. Every so often, my headlights illuminated old wooden signposts pointing toward villages I had never heard of, names that sounded more like warnings than destinations. After another few minutes, he spoke again. "You've driven these roads before, haven't you?" I shook my head. "Not really. I usually stay closer to the city." He made a sound then, a low hum, almost like he was disappointed. "You will remember them after tonight." The car felt suddenly colder. My breath fogged faintly on the windshield, even though the heater was on. I told myself it was just the rain, just my imagination, but deep down I felt it, the shift in the air. Something wasn't right. I drove on, the silence thickening again. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the countryside. And then, as we passed a crumbling stone wall, I could have sworn I saw something move among the shadows, just for a moment, a pale figure watching from between the trees. I blinked, and it was gone. I gripped the wheel tighter, forcing my eyes back to the road. But in the rearview mirror, I noticed something that froze me completely. The back seat was wet, soaking wet. Raindrops clung not only to his coat, but to the leather seat beneath him, as if he had been drenched for hours. Yet when he'd stepped into the car, I hadn't seen him carry an umbrella, or even a phone. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. I just kept driving toward Holloway Lane, the rain following us like a warning. The rain wasn't letting up. If anything, it seemed to be getting worse. Sheets of water pelted against the windscreen, and the countryside roads grew narrower, twisting like veins through the dark fields. My wipers squealed with every pass, barely keeping up. The man in the back had gone completely silent again. I could feel his presence, heavy and suffocating, like he was staring at the back of my head. Every so often I caught his reflection in the mirror, still slouched, still shadowed, still too pale. But the silence was what made my chest tighten. It was the silence of someone who wasn't simply waiting, but listening. To what, I didn't know. "Not far now," I muttered, more to myself than to him. The GPS showed only 5 more miles to Holloway Lane. But out here, 5 miles of winding country road felt like an eternity. That was when he spoke again. "You should turn off the GPS." His voice was flat, but commanding in a way that cut through the rain. I laughed nervously. "Afraid I'll get lost if I do that. These roads all look the same to me." "You won't get lost," he said. "You'll find it. Everyone does." His words unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I kept my eyes on the glowing map anyway, watching the little blue arrow inch forward. But then something strange happened. The map froze. The signal bars disappeared. The screen went blank for a moment, and then a red error popped up. No GPS signal. I tapped at it, cursed under my breath, even tried restarting the app, but the connection was gone. Out here in the countryside, surrounded by endless fields and trees, I suddenly realized I had no service. No signal. No lifeline. The man leaned forward slightly, his voice close to my ear. "Just keep going. The road knows the way." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I forced myself to nod, though my heart was hammering in my chest. So I kept driving. The road wound tighter, the hedges higher. Raindrops blurred into streaks, distorting everything beyond the headlights. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I began to notice something. Figures. At first, I thought it was a trick of the rain. But no, there were people along the roadside. At least, They looked like people. Pale outlines standing among the hedgerows, motionless, watching as my car rolled past. Some were turned toward the road, some half hidden in the trees, their faces indistinguishable in the storm. My hands went clammy against the wheel. Did you see that?" I asked. The man in the back let out a low chuckle, a sound so dry it made my skin crawl. "They're waiting." I almost slammed the brakes right there. "Waiting for what?" He leaned back, disappearing into shadow again. "You'll see." Every instinct in me screamed to turn the car around. But the narrow road left me no space, and besides, something deep down told me I wouldn't find my way back even if I tried. So I pressed on, every nerve in my body wound tight as wire. We passed a rusted iron gate, barely hanging on its hinges, with a sign so weathered it was impossible to read. Beyond it, a crooked path disappeared into a cluster of ancient oaks. For a moment, my headlights caught movement again, a figure darting between the trees, impossibly fast. I blinked hard. Maybe it was just an animal. A deer. A fox. Anything but what my mind was conjuring. But when I glanced at the rearview mirror, I caught the man smiling faintly. His teeth looked too sharp in the dim light. My chest tightened. "Listen, mate," I said, forcing some bravado into my voice, "if this is some kind of joke, if you're messing with me, I'll pull over right now. I don't play games at this hour." He didn't respond. Instead, he slowly raised his hand and tapped once on the window. At that exact moment, lightning split the sky, illuminating the fields around us for a fraction of a second. And in that flash, I saw them. Dozens of pale faces lined along the hedgerows, staring blankly toward the road. Men. Women. Children. Their clothes looked wrong. Outdated, like something from centuries ago. Some were drenched, water pouring down their faces, yet none of them moved. The lightning faded, plunging everything back into darkness. I gasped, swerving slightly, my tires hissing on the wet road. "Jesus Christ, did you see that?" The man whispered, almost soothingly. "They've always been here." My stomach dropped. My hands trembled on the wheel. I wanted to stop, to throw him out of my car, to run, but I couldn't. I couldn't explain it, but I felt locked to the road, like the car itself was being pulled forward by something stronger than me. We drove on. Minutes stretched into hours in my head. The figures by the road appeared and disappeared with each flash of lightning, always closer, always more numerous. My breathing grew shallow, my chest tight, as though the very air in the car was thinning. Finally, the man spoke again, his voice low, almost reverent. "It's just ahead." I followed his gaze. And then, through the rain and trees, I saw it. A church. Or what had once been one. The stone walls were half collapsed, ivy strangling what remained of the tower. The roof sagged inward, long since devoured by weather and time. A rusted gate creaked in the wind at the entrance to the churchyard. Beyond it, rows of tilting gravestones jutted from the earth like broken teeth. My headlights illuminated the sign, Holloway Lane. I slowed, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Why here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The man finally leaned forward into the dim glow of the dashboard. For the first time, I saw his face clearly. And I wished I hadn't. His skin was corpse pale, his cheeks hollowed, his eyes sunken so deep they looked like bruises. His lips were tinged blue, and water dripped constantly from his coat, pooling onto the floor of my car. But it was his eyes that froze me. They weren't just pale. They were lifeless. Dead eyes. And when he smiled, I realized something I should have known all along. I hadn't picked up a passenger. I had picked up a ghost. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. The pale man sat there in my back seat, dripping rainwater onto the floor mats, his hollow eyes fixed on me like I was the one out of place. My stomach lurched as reality crashed in. This wasn't just some strange passenger. I had been driving a ghost. "Stop the car," he said softly. I couldn't move. My hands clamped to the wheel, my foot pressing the brake almost on its own. The car rolled to a halt in front of the rusted gates of the old churchyard. The rain hammered against the roof, but inside the car, it felt impossibly quiet, so quiet I could hear my own ragged breaths echoing in the small space. He leaned closer, his wet coat brushing the back of my seat. "This is where I get out." My throat closed. I can't let you out here. There's nothing here. It's abandoned." His lips curled faintly, almost like a smirk. "It's not abandoned. Not tonight." Before I could reply, he opened the door. The creak of the hinge was sharp, unnerving in the silence. Cold air rushed in, mixing with the damp scent of earth and decay. He stepped out into the rain, but as his feet touched the ground, something impossible happened. His form seemed to blur, as though the rain passed through him instead of soaking him further. I sat frozen, staring as he walked toward the church gates. My headlights flickered, casting broken light across the gravestones. And then I saw them. The figures. The ones I had glimpsed along the roadside. They were here, dozens, maybe hundreds of them, spreading out among the graves, their pale faces turned toward the church. Men in old suits, women in tattered dresses, children clutching worn dolls, all standing silently in the storm. Not one of them moved. Not one of them blinked. The man reached the gate and paused. Slowly, he turned back toward me. His face was clearer now, illuminated by the lightning that split the sky above the ruined church. His lips parted, and his voice carried across the rain like a whisper only I could hear. "You brought me home." My chest constricted. My instinct screamed at me to drive, to get away, to never look back, but my body wouldn't respond. The wheel was slick in my trembling hands, my foot frozen above the pedal. All I could do was stare. The man stepped through the gate. The others turned in unison, following him, their feet soundless against the soaked ground. They moved together like a tide, drifting toward the broken church. And then, as lightning tore across the sky once more, I saw the doors. The heavy wooden church doors, doors that had been rotting for decades, swung open slowly, groaning against the storm. Beyond them, there was no light. No interior. Just blackness, deeper than the night itself. One by one, the figures entered. The man in the coat went first, disappearing into the void. The rest followed, vanishing into the blackness as though swallowed by it. My breath caught in my throat. My mind screamed, "This can't be real, this isn't happening." But my eyes saw it. My body felt it. And then, they were gone. The gate slammed shut with a sound so final it rattled my bones. The churchyard was empty. The gravestones stood crooked in the rain. The doors sagged closed again, rotting, broken, as if they had never opened at all. For a long time, I sat there, staring through the windshield, my heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to break free. The rain continued, but the figures had vanished. The man was gone. Finally, I forced myself to move. My hand shook violently as I shifted the car into gear. I pressed the accelerator hard, the tires spitting water as I sped away from Holloway Lane. I didn't care where I was going, I just had to get away. The road blurred past, hedgerows streaking in the headlights, my breath ragged and uneven. Every flash of lightning made me flinch, terrified I'd see those pale faces again. But the roadside was empty now. After what felt like hours, I finally found myself back near familiar streets, the warm glow of street lamps breaking through the endless countryside darkness. My phone buzzed suddenly on the dash, signal restored. The Uber app restarted itself, the map glowing again as though nothing had ever gone wrong. But when I checked my trip history, my blood ran cold. There was no record of the ride. No pickup. No drop-off. No fare. It was as if the man had never existed. I sat there in stunned silence, my fingers gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. The rain eased, but the chill inside me didn't. To this day, I can't explain what happened. I never went back to Ashford Hollow. I never drove those roads again. But sometimes, late at night, when the rain lashes against my windows and the world outside falls deathly quiet, I remember his words. "You'll remember these roads after tonight." And he was right. I'll never forget them. Not for as long as I live.